My beloved child, compromise never enters your life like a frightening abyss. It often comes as a soft seat after a weary day. It whispers to you, just this once, telling you that remaining silent is easier than speaking the truth no one wants to hear. At first, you only avoid one difficult conversation, only nod to get through while your heart is not at peace, only smile to avoid having to explain why you choose me instead of the expectations of others. My child, compromise does not begin with a great sin, but with choosing comfort over truth, saying less so you will not be opposed, remaining silent when your conscience longs to speak. Every time you choose comfort instead of truth, your soul learns to shrink a little. Every time you pretend that it's nothing while I am touching your heart, your spiritual sensitivity becomes a little duller. I do not say this to condemn you, but so you may recognize that what is eating away at your strength is not the great storms outside, but the very small, very gentle, very reasonable compromises in the eyes of the world. You often think compromise is when someone does something terribly wrong, clearly sinful, shameful, beyond dispute. But my child, most of the time it only begins with one tiny step back from what you know is right. It is when you cut down your time with me because you are a little busy, even though your heart knows you are running dry. It is when you hear an untrue word spoken about another person and you stay silent, not because you are preserving peace, but because you fear being disliked. It is when you tell yourself, I'll pray later, even though in that very moment your heart is being urged to kneel. Each small retreat does not shake heaven and earth. No one sees it, no one scolds you, but inside, the boundary between belonging to me and belonging to convenience slowly fades. I see those moments more clearly than anyone. I see when you want to say no, but instead you smile and say, okay, when you wish to preserve the integrity of your heart, but let the fear of displeasing others take the lead. I see it not because I am searching for errors, but because I know that if you become used to living this way, one day you will no longer recognize what is conscience and what is compromise. My child, many times you confuse peace with comfort. The peace that comes from me always walks hand in hand with truth, even when that truth calls you to adjust, to repent, to be courageous. But the false comfort born of compromise always avoids the truth, always demands that you remain silent when I am inviting you to step forward. There are moments when you tell yourself, as long as everyone is happy, as long as there is no conflict, that is fine. Yet deep within, you know you have abandoned what I placed in your heart. You may feel relieved for a moment, but afterward your heart feels hollow, as if you missed something important that you cannot name. This is because your soul was not created to live merely in comfort. It was created to live in truth with me. Truth may bring tears, but those tears cleanse. Compromise gives you a temporary smile, but leaves behind a heaviness you cannot explain. I want you to discern this, not so that you become harsh, but so you may know where true peace is calling you to return. I know there are times you compromise not because you love what is wrong, but because you fear losing what you hold. A relationship, a position, a reputation, a safe space you have grown used to. You fear that if you step out and follow what I stir in you, everything will shatter in your hands. You whisper to me in your heart, if I am honest, they will leave me. If I obey, I will lose everything. My child, I hear even those unspoken words. I do not blame you for being afraid, but I do not want that fear to become the reason you live beneath what I have destined. You were not created to live forever bowing and dodging, but to stand upright in my love. When you choose truth with me, you are not stepping into a void, you are stepping into my arms. Compromise promises you that you will lose nothing, but in reality, it is taking from you something precious, the courage to live as someone I have chosen. I do not require you to be strong instantly. I ask only one thing. Do not sign another covenant with silence every time I am gently calling you forward. I come to you today not to tell you that every compromise within you is the end, but to tell you that it is only the starting point of a new awakening. I touch the places where you have chosen comfort instead of truth, not to shame you, but to remind you that you were created for more. You are one I love, one I call by name, one I see among a crowd of weary souls. When you begin to name the areas of compromise in your heart before me, that is not the day of your failure, it is the day you begin to rise. The first step out of compromise is not doing something great, but daring to admit to me, Father, I chose comfort over truth. Please lead me back to you. That sentence may seem small to the world, but to me, it is the voice of a soul returning to its true identity. Therefore, when you hear my words today, do not rush to prove anything before others. I do not call you to succeed in the eyes of the world. I call you to be honest in mine. Every time you choose to listen to my gentle prompting instead of the urge for comfort, you are training your soul to stand a little straighter. Every time you dare to speak a truthful word, even with trembling voice, you are slowly removing the layers of compromise that have bound you for so long. You will not become perfect in a day. But I am not looking for perfection. I am looking for small steps of faithfulness in my hands. Let this sentence anchor itself in your heart. You are not called to live the most comfortable. You are called to live the most aligned with me. When you take hold of this truth, each small compromise will gradually lose its weight, and you will begin to feel the lightness of a soul no longer forced to play a role it was never born to play. My beloved child, my voice in your life has never been silent, but I know there are seasons when you can hardly distinguish whether it is my voice or the voice of fear, the expectations of others, and your own thoughts. Compromise does not silence me, but it gradually places layer after layer of fogged glass between your heart and my calling. Each time you choose, don't make it a big deal. Don't be different. Don't make anyone uncomfortable. Your heart learns a new reflex, to prioritize surface safety over inner obedience. Eventually, you begin to doubt my gentle urgings because they no longer resemble the safety compromise has taught you. You say, maybe this is just my own thought, maybe I'm being too sensitive, and you push it away, not because you are cruel, but because you fear being misunderstood, fear being seen as extreme, fear walking alone. My child, the fear of being misunderstood is one of the thickest walls. Compromise builds around the heart. It whispers that if you stay quiet, if you remain like everyone else, you will be loved more, accepted more, safer. Yet, in truth, it is slowly blurring the very place where I am still speaking. Imagine a small room with a radio playing a gentle piece of music, requiring a quiet soul to hear it clearly. If the streets outside suddenly fill with traffic, voices, vendors, arguments, that soft music will be drowned by the noise of the world. My voice in you is like that sound, not because it is weak, but because I choose to speak in gentleness, so your soul may be drawn into true peace. But when compromise teaches you to live among the noise of, it must be this way, everyone does it, don't be different, your heart begins turning down the volume of my voice and turning up the volume of every other. I do not fall silent, but your soul no longer has space to discern. You make decisions not from the place of meeting me, but from fear. What will they think if I do this? If I obey, what will happen to my family, my work, my relationships? The noise of those questions devours the gentleness of my voice, while what you truly need is the courage to quiet all the others so you may return to the sound that has never left your soul. My child, when compromise becomes a habit, you begin to doubt even the identity of sheep that I have given you. You hear me say, my sheep hear my voice, yet in your heart you respond, do I truly hear, or have I gone astray? And then, instead of stepping closer to listen more carefully, you retreat behind the crowd so you do not have to discern. You treat spiritual sensitivity as a privilege reserved for those who are closer to God, while you convince yourself that you only need to live peacefully. But my child, that very thought is a reminder that I still see you as my sheep, as one who belongs to me, as a soul I am calling through the smallest details of your daily life. Sensitivity to my voice is not a gift reserved for the perfect. It is the fruit of a heart willing to let me peel away the layers of compromise that have been pasted over your ears, your eyes, and your heart. Each time you say to me, please help me hear your voice more clearly, I do not look at your past to score you. I look at that exact present moment where a soul is seeking to return to the source of life. I know you have mistaken living wisely for compromising, maintaining harmony, for forgetting truth. There were moments when you chose not to speak what I placed in your heart because you wanted to keep peace at home, in the group, or in the relationship. There were times you forced a smile in the face of what contradicted my word, then comforted yourself with, "God understands. I don't want to make this bigger. I do understand. I know your heart does not want to harm, but I also clearly see every small scratch on your spiritual sensitivity." Each time you repeat that choice, you are teaching yourself that my voice is something that brings trouble, while compromise is what keeps peace. Gradually, your soul becomes hesitant, even when I ask you to do something very small. Pray for someone, speak a word of encouragement, choose honesty in a gray situation. You begin to ask others more than you ask me, begin to seek the majority more than the peace that comes from the Holy Spirit. You think you are maturing because you know how to be flexible, but in truth, there are places where you are drifting away from the space where my voice was once very clear. My beloved child, I do not come to rebuke you for the times you chose silence. I come to reopen the door that compromise has shut with the fear of being misunderstood. I know you have been judged for doing what is right, accused of being too sensitive, too religious, too different, and those wounds make you withdraw every time you feel my prompting. I do not dismiss those experiences. I embrace them together with you. But I also want you to know that those judgments have no authority to define the relationship between us. Your spiritual sensitivity is not a burden. It is a gift meant to protect your soul and those whom I place around you. When you dare to allow yourself to believe, the Father is speaking to me. When you dare to ask, "Father, is this your voice?" you are stepping outside the box that compromise built from painful memories. Sensitivity does not return like thunder. It returns like a familiar heartbeat within you. Every time you choose to open your heart to me, just a little more. Therefore, my child, what I invite you to today is not to strain yourself into becoming more sensitive, but to lay down the fear of being misunderstood so that your heart has space to rest before me. When you learn to quiet the noise of expectations, of the assumptions of what people will think, you will notice the small but steady sound of my voice that has never left your life. You will begin to see more clearly the times I warned, comforted, and guided you, but which were buried beneath the dust of compromise. You will realize that losing sensitivity is not a fixed destiny but a condition I can heal. And the anchor I want to carve again into your heart is this: you have not lost my calling, you only need to return to the place where your heart opens to me. When you grasp that truth, each step away from compromise will no longer be a lonely journey, but a journey you walk with, the one who patiently calls your name, in the midst of the world's noise. You do not recognize the power of compromise until you begin believing that the less risky choice is always the wiser one. It does not present itself as a dangerous trap, but as a gentle suggestion. Just take the safe route, as long as no one gets upset. At first you agree only in a few small situations to keep harmony, to avoid conflict, to avoid explaining yourself. But with every choice that feels less exhausting, you hand fear a little more power, and it quickly learns how to trade away truth in exchange for momentary comfort. You do not notice it, because compromise rarely uses a hammer, it uses a blanket. It does not demand you bow immediately. It only invites you to sit a little longer, then a little longer again, until you grow accustomed to not stepping out, not confronting, not answering the inner prompting. There are moments when you know exactly what you should do. Speak a rightful opinion, protect what is true, stand on the side of truth, even when no one applauds. But you choose silence, and you feel relieved for a moment. That relief is like a soft pillow pressed against your conscience, not painful, not uncomfortable, but no longer sharp. Then at some point, you look back and realize you have been silent not once, but many times. You did not choose safety just once. You turned it into the standard by which you measure everything. You ask me, do you want me to be at peace? When what you truly want is confirmation for your avoidance. You no longer ask, what is your will? But, Father, can you allow me to do nothing? That is the moment when compromise not only diverts you from the path I opened, but begins to rewrite the very map of values within you. Compromise has a subtle method. It forms habits. When you choose the less risky option, your mind records, "I survived," and then begins to define safety as what must be done to avoid shame. That is not to mention the quiet comparisons you make between yourself and those who seem to live a peaceful life by worldly standards. You see them facing less conflict, less challenge, less criticism, and you think, maybe they know how to live better than I do. But you do not see the inner cost they pay. Not everyone who chooses stability lives in peace. Many are merely running from the calling they refuse to hear. In moments when you look at the door I open, you see that it requires courage, requires trust, requires you to step out of your comfort zone. But when you turn to the smaller door beside it, even though you know it does not align with your calling, you still choose it because you believe it will be more comfortable. You say, "I can still serve you from here," but in truth you are asking me to legitimize your fear. You forget that my will always leads you into maturity, while compromise only nurtures the desire to avoid hardship. You begin reducing your spiritual life to a single goal: do not let me get hurt. And from there, slowly, you come to believe that hiding is wiser than obedience. I do not blame you for being afraid. Fear is a natural reaction when your eyes are fixed on the circumstances before you rather than on my guidance. But I want you to see how fear changes its nature when it mixes with compromise. When there is only fear, you can run to me to find strength. But when compromise partners with it, fear begins to speak in the voice of reason. Do not act, or you will lose your chance. Do not speak, or they will misunderstand you. Do not step forward, or you will have no way back. You no longer recognize it as fear. You begin to see it as wisdom. Fear is no longer a feeling, it becomes the measuring tool for every decision. And if you are not vigilant, you will confuse the wisdom I teach with the caution that compromise teaches. One who follows me is not someone who is always right, but someone who does not trade truth for convenience. Not every situation requires a battle, and not every disapproving gaze requires resistance. But when your heart knows clearly what I have placed within you, and you still choose to withdraw to avoid conflict, you are making a dangerous declaration. Comfort is a greater goal than the will of the Father. I do not call you into unnecessary suffering, but I also do not shape you out of fear. I do not build you by giving you a life without risk. I build you by teaching you how to stand firm when risk appears. There are those who have walked far on the journey of faith, yet they stop just before the threshold I opened. They do not fall because of obvious sin, but because they choose quiet safety over clear obedience. Outwardly, they seem fine. They still pray, still attend gatherings, still speak words filled with faith. But inwardly, they have turned the steering wheel from, "Father, what do you want me to do?" to, "Father, do not let me run into trouble." From that moment on, the door I opened still stands, but they see it as a threat. They will tell others, "He has not called," simply because they do not want to face the calling that has already become too evident. I come to remind you, courage is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to compromise. My will does not promise an easy path, but it always preserves your soul. Comfort only preserves temporary emotion. When you begin to choose me instead of fear, you will see that compromise is no refuge at all, but merely a shadow blocking your view of the door I opened. You will understand that peace does not come from avoiding risk, but from stepping directly into what I have prepared for you. Hesitation is not ignorance. It is the gap between what I have placed inside you and what you think you must acquire before you move. You believe you are not intelligent enough, not experienced enough, not equipped with enough evidence to prove you can do it. So you stand still in front of the door I have already opened. But I tell you, faith does not need acknowledgement, it only needs response. When you look to others for permission, you hand the authority over your direction to hearts that cannot know the fullness of my intention for. It is not that they are malicious, they simply cannot see as deeply as I see. They judge according to your past, I lead according to the future I have prepared. You say, "But they do not understand me." I answer, they do not need to understand for me to still call you. Not every compliment is a sign sent by me, and not every warning is my voice. When your soul depends too much on consensus, you begin to measure my will by human reactions. There are paths I open that appear very quiet. No drums, no lights, no applause. Only a silent door waiting for you to approach. You look at its stillness and assume it is not significant enough, not valuable enough, not worthy of the sacrifice. But you do not know that I often hide the greatest turning points in the smallest places, like a seed buried in the soil, unseen, uncelebrated, yet it is where life awakens. You have grown accustomed to external milestones, recognition, approval, congratulations, but I train you through internal milestones, an unreasonable peace, a soft whisper in your heart, a prompting that does not come from the arithmetic of the world. You have learned to trust voices louder than yourself, but you have not yet learned to trust my silence, where I teach you that peace is a declaration stronger than applause. That is why I do not drive you with noise. I call you with a voice only your soul can recognize. Hesitation is often disguised with the language of humility. You say, I just need more time. I must consider this more carefully. I will step forward when everything becomes clearer. But in truth, what you need is not more time, you need more trust. Time only amplifies fear when the heart is not anchored in me. You mistake caution for wisdom, and indeed, caution protects you in many situations. But hesitation is not caution. Hesitation is the soul delaying what it has already been invited to do, while demanding another layer of confirmation to soothe its fear. When you have heard me and still ask me 10 more times, you are not seeking discernment, you are seeking assurance that you will not be misunderstood. You do not want to fail, do not want to be questioned, do not want to become the subject of discussion, but you forget that the peace I give does not arise from avoiding waves, but from following my call in the midst of them. Many souls stop at the starting line simply because they think they need someone beside them to nod in approval. You look left, look right, waiting for someone to say, "You are correct," before you dare to lift your foot. But I did not design you as a replica of the crowd. I do not give a calling that depends on spectators. I give a calling that depends on me. You fear being misunderstood, but remember that even those I choose are misunderstood for a lifetime. Abraham walked when no one knew where he was going. Moses led a people when the ones following him could only see sand and wilderness. Paul preached when the very people he once stood alongside called him a traitor. No one is recognized before they walk. Recognition comes after obedience, not before it. You want to be certain you will not lose your way, but certainty is not the foundation of faith. Trust in me is. I know you desire peace. No one blames you for it, but peace does not lie in waiting for others to accept you. It lies in your acceptance of my leading over you. When you step, you may not be understood. You may face suspicion, curiosity, judgment, but I will walk with you. My presence is the greatest validation. I do not give a calling so that you must ask permission from everyone before fulfilling it. I give a calling so that you may know that even if you are alone, you are never truly alone. Hesitation whispers, wait for their support. Faith says, go, and I will be there. If you remain in the waiting room of consensus, you will eventually mistake human silence for my silence. But I have never been silent toward you. I have simply been waiting for your answer. Hesitation does not arrive like a storm that destroys everything you have built. It comes like a thin layer of dust, slowly covering a tabletop. No one notices on the first day, no one reacts on the second, and by the time you realize it, the entire surface has been concealed. Some believe darkness seeks to steal dreams, but it never needs to do that. It only needs to convince you that the dream can wait one more day. I'll do it tomorrow sounds gentle, non-threatening, harmless, yet it is precisely that gentleness that paralyzes the soul. Hesitation never shows up in the form of a warning. It merely borrows the appearance of busyness, logic, and counterfeit wisdom. You do not see yourself losing faith. You simply believe you are postponing a little, then a little more. It is not fear that kills the dream. It is the steady delay that dries it up like a water source left unattended. Darkness is not a thief who breaks down doors. It is a whisper beside you, telling you there is still time. There are doors I open that do not close with loud sounds. They simply drift out of your sight as your hands become occupied with things that seem more urgent. You tell yourself, I will start once everything is stable, without realizing that the waiting for stability is itself the trap. The enemy does not need to push you in another direction. He only needs to keep you still. Hesitation turns you into a living statue, someone who knows they need to move, but refuses to lift their feet. I placed a calling within you, and you feel its pulse like a drumbeat from afar. Yet each day you say, let it beat one more time and then I will go. You wait for circumstances, you wait for people, you wait for certainty, and when none of these arrive, you assume the calling has grown weaker. But the calling has not weakened. It is your sensitivity that has been layered over with dust. Little by little, you begin to forget that I called you from the very beginning. Hesitation makes you believe you are thinking, when in reality you are bargaining away your spirit. You no longer ask, what does God want? But instead, what will make others more comfortable? You no longer ask, where is the path He set for me? But instead whisper to yourself, perhaps I should wait. Perhaps someone else will do this instead. When your soul changes its questions, your feet change their direction. You no longer walk by my guidance. You begin to walk according to the psychology of the crowd. There are opportunities I send only to see if you still remember how to trust me. Not every delay is wisdom, and not every quick action is recklessness. What matters is not speed, but the force that moves you from within. Are you acting according to the peace I give, or according to compromise within yourself? Ephesians 5:16 says, make the most of your time, because the days are evil. Time does not punish you. Time wears down the souls that stand still. Darkness does not applaud when you collapse. It applauds when you say, all right, I'll do it. Tomorrow. Because it knows tomorrow is an undefined space. No commitment, no movement, no obedience. Tomorrow is the buffer zone between desire and action, where your soul is suspended and uprooted. You do something noble. You research, you reflect, you plan, you wait for the right moment. But, in all of that activity, there is one thing you still have not done. Step forward. You think you are wise when you delay, but intelligence cannot replace obedience. I do not call you to move when you know everything. I call you to move when you know me. Strength does not come from endless preparation. It comes from taking the first step onto the ground I have given. You wait to be unafraid before you step, but courage is not born in safety. It is born when you place your fear in my hands. My beloved child, hesitation does not simply slow you down. It rewires your soul. It makes you believe that moving is risky and standing still is safe. It makes you treat avoidance as wisdom and obedience as recklessness. But I have not led you into a life measured by safety. I lead you into a life measured by trust. When you step forward, even trembling, I walk beside you. When you remain frozen in fear, the faith within you begins to dim, not because I abandon you, but because you abandon my calling. Remember this. No battle is lost because you are weak. You only lose when you never enter the field. Darkness does not need to win in direct confrontation. It only needs to ensure you never advance. I have never called you to a small life. I have called you to steady maturity, a maturity that begins not with thunder, but with a single step. Hesitation does not destroy the soul in an instant, but it slowly reshapes how you define value. When hesitation becomes habit, you begin to evaluate every choice according to comfort rather than truth. That which feels pleasant is called good. That which demands responsibility is labeled not the right time. You do not say you reject the calling. You merely say you will do it later. And while the words sound harmless, they silently recalibrate the priorities within you. Your worth is no longer anchored in obedience, but in avoiding discomfort. Maturity is no longer advancing toward what I call you to, but maintaining the old condition long enough that no one questions it. You begin to believe peace exists only in avoiding storms instead of standing in the storm with me. Hesitation turns sacred matters into burdens, opportunities into risks, and faith into something that should be reconsidered. A hesitant soul does not treat my will as its foundation. It treats emotions as its compass. You feel uncertain, so you do not act. You feel misunderstood, so you do not speak. You feel small, so you accept shrinking back. But feelings are not the map of the soul. They are only the weather of the heart. If you follow the weather, you will change direction every time the sky shifts. But if you walk according to my will, you will move whether it is sunny or storming. I do not measure your worth by perfection or outcomes. I measure it by your willingness to take a step. Hesitation blinds you to this. It makes you treat not starting yet as humility, when in truth it is fear, dressed up as logic. When the soul uses fear to protect itself, it binds the wings I have given you. Without steps there is no experience. Without experience there is no growth. And without growth, the calling becomes only a story you tell yourself to feel comforted. Hesitation also makes you misunderstand me. You think I wait for you to prepare flawlessly, but I wait for you to trust me enough to step while still trembling. I never said you must know everything, manage every possibility, or solve every variable before moving. I only said, follow me. When you demand understanding, before obedience, you invert the order of the Spirit. You turn faith into negotiation, calling into calculation, and me into a strategic consultant instead of a father. But a father does not guide souls through anxiety, he guides through peace. Peace is not the absence of fear, but the conviction that fear does not direct your steps. You may tremble, but I remain strong. You may be weary, but I remain steady. You may not know the entire path, but I know the road you walk. Between hesitation and obedience, the difference does not lie in difficulty, but in who you place your trust in. There are callings that cannot be held with safety, not because I desire your pain, but because you cannot cling to a shield of self-protection while taking hold of what I give you. Hesitation causes the soul to contract, while growth causes it to expand. You cannot expand if you are always trying to keep balance by avoiding risk. There are doors you will only see when you move closer, not when you observe from afar. There are paths that only illuminate when you place your first step. You think stillness will keep you safe, but stillness only keeps you outside my will. You think choosing smaller things will protect you from failure, but I did not create you to live as one who avoids failure. I created you to live as one who trusts. The purpose I give you is not for you to prove your strength, but to learn how to rely on mine. The chosen are not those who never fear, but those who refuse to let fear decide. My beloved child, I am not calling you to safety. I am calling you to maturity. Maturity is not a grand leap that the world must witness. Maturity is the small decision repeated every day, choosing truth instead of compromise, choosing obedience instead of postponing, choosing to move instead of remaining still. The enemy wants you to believe that these decisions are meaningless, that only great actions are worthy of my attention. Yet it is precisely these small decisions that determine the direction of your soul. Each time you choose to step, fear shrinks. Each time you choose to delay, fear grows. I do not need you to be strong all at once. I need you to remain within my will. The essence of the chosen one does not lie in doing what is extraordinary, but in remaining faithful to what is right when no one understands. The maturity I want to give you is not easy victory, but steadfast peace, peace that only exists when you know you are standing exactly where I want you to stand. There are moments when you wish my voice would thunder like a storm, so powerful that you could never confuse it. A single event that changes everything in one day. You imagine that I will shake you through something intense enough to make you tremble and realize, but I often come in a gentler way, a slight uneasiness inside, not loud, not dramatic, without flashing lights, just a subtle offbeat. It is like a cool breath of air passing through a hot afternoon, not enough for others to notice, but enough for you to know that something is misaligned in your direction. That uneasiness is not meant to threaten you, but to call you back to the truth you once received. When you begin to step away from what you know is right, that uneasiness does not disappear. It stands there, patiently, like a hand resting lightly on your shoulder, not forcing you, yet not leaving you. It is not a voice of condemning judgment, but my whisper, you are walking away from me. Sometimes you ask why you feel so heavy when everything on the outside seems fine. No one criticizes you, no one opposes you, no conflicts are taking place. You think you have chosen what is safe, reasonable, and non-disruptive, but inside you feel like there is a current that refuses to lie still, a quiet swirling that makes your heart feel cramped. That is not groundless anxiety, nor is it a negative emotion. It is a reminder that you are living against the light you have already received. You can tell others, everyone does this, but your soul does not agree. You can reassure yourself, this doesn't hurt anyone, yet the uneasiness remains. It does not shout, it simply stands at the threshold of your mind and asks, is this really you? And when you have not yet answered, it does not go away, because I never abandon you when you are on the verge of trading your soul for superficial safety. The gentle uneasiness within is like a string that has fallen slightly out of tune. Others do not hear it, but the musician notices instantly. While you are still expecting me to hand you a map, I place a compass in your hand. That compass does not shake when you stand still, but it shifts when you walk in the wrong direction. You feel it when you say what you do not believe, when you remain silent where you ought to stand for truth, when you agree with something only because you are afraid of being misunderstood. No one rebukes you, yet inside you feel choked. No one forces you, yet you feel you are betraying the best thing I have planted in you. That is the sign of spiritual maturity. You no longer need someone else to warn you. Your own soul becomes the reminder. I have placed that within you, not to punish you, but to guard you from a life of compromise. Do not treat that smallness as something insignificant. Many souls lose their sensitivity not because I am silent, but because they have grown used to ignoring the small voice. They wait for signs, for clear dreams, for supernatural experiences, and they believe that a spiritual call must be dramatic to be worthy of attention. Yet my voice often comes like the drop of water falling on a leaf. It makes no great sound, but it is enough to change the tilt of the leaf. You ignore that gentle feeling once, then twice, then 3 times. The uneasiness does not vanish, but your heart slowly grows calloused. It is like dust on a table. The first day you see it, you want to wipe it away. After a month, you call it the original color of the wood. Not because the dust has become wood, but because you have grown accustomed to what is wrong and begun to call it normal. If you pause and ask me not with a calculating mind, but with sincerity, that uneasiness instantly becomes light. A small space opens in your heart, like a crack in the door through which dawn slips in. You do not need to be courageous at once. You only need to be honest. I know this is not truly mine. That is the moment you step from the realm of compromise into the realm of maturity. Not because you have become perfect, but because you are no longer pretending before me. From that honesty, you begin to understand what I have always longed for you to know. I do not raise you by thunder. I lead you with gentle touches that are just strong enough to stir your soul. There are seasons when you seek me through feelings, and the moment your feelings grow quiet, you immediately assume I have left. You worry, you hurry, you look for words from others to fill that seeming emptiness. But I am not a feeling, and my presence does not depend on the fluctuations within you. I do not disappear when you can no longer sense me. I am simply bringing you into a new classroom of the soul, the lesson of maturity. When you were younger, I came like a soft breeze, bringing comfort, bringing warmth. But as you grow, I invite you into stillness, where only you and I remain. No flashes of light, no storm, no sign, only trust. There, faith no longer needs to be supplemented by emotion. It stands because it knows I am still here. My silence is not a void. It is the space in which your soul learns to recognize me without needing proof. You once thought silence was failure. Failure in prayer, failure in discernment, failure in maintaining your spiritual life. But you were mistaken. When I am silent, it is not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough to walk by the light you have already received. I do not need to repeat what I have clearly spoken. Silence simply places one question upon your soul. Will you trust me when I add nothing more to what I have said? Many people remain faithful only when my words come continuously, when they are encouraged every day. But maturity comes when they remain faithful even when no one applauds, no one affirms, no one sees. I want you to be that steady. For if you live only by external affirmation, you will act for people. But if you live by the silence I give, you begin to act for me. My silence is like a still lake at dawn. You look at it and hear no sound, yet you see the sky reflected. I give you silence so that you may realize my voice does not come only through sound, but through inner order. When your heart is in turmoil, you demand that I speak loudly, that I shatter your fear with strong words. But when your heart is at rest, a single breath from me is enough to guide your way. If you seek me only in the storm, you will miss me in the sunrise. If you only desire that I break the silence, you will never learn how to find me in the calm. I grant you silence so that you stop chasing alarms on the outside and begin to listen within, where my spirit is already waiting. I do not use silence to punish. I use it to protect. If I spoke constantly, you would grow accustomed to relying on my words rather than your relationship with me. You would turn me into a mechanical compass, not a living God. Therefore, I teach you to listen not only with the ear, but with reverence, with sensitivity, with the ability to recognize what does not belong to you. When you pray, please speak. I sometimes answer with silence, not because I refuse you, but because I want you to ask another question. Is what I have already said enough for you to walk? The fear within you often wants me to change my instructions, but silence reminds you that I do not revise my will to match your emotions. What I have spoken to you in the light remains true when you walk in the dark. If you can receive silence as a gift, you will see something. In silence, I am not distant. I am so near that words are unnecessary. I am beside you like a guide placing a hand on your shoulder without speaking. This is how I lead mature souls, not with thunder, not with fire, but with presence. When you learn to exist within the absence of sound without panic, you have already crossed the threshold of compromise. You have stopped seeking safety in noise and started seeking it in me. In that moment, you understand that I am not silent. You simply became so accustomed to loudness that you could not recognize the whispers. I remain silent so you remember. My love does not require commands to exist. Standing up does not begin on the day you succeed or in the moment you are praised. Standing up begins in a small room where no one sees, where ordinary choices determine the direction of your soul. You imagine calling to be a grand moment, a large gathering, or a surge of inspiration, but in me, calling often arrives as a quiet decision, to hold on to honesty when everyone else is silent, to speak truth when your heart trembles, to refuse a beneficial opportunity when you know it is not aligned with the light you have received. Before you stand before people, I invite you to stand before me. Before you step onto a stage, I invite you to step away from the comfortable chair. If you wait only for the spotlight, you will miss the small doors I open moment by moment. I know your soul fears that choosing differently from the crowd will cost you status, respect, or affection, but you do not know that such losses are the shell I use to protect you from becoming one who lives on the approval of others. Only when you learn to stand alone in me will you be strong enough to stand among many without losing yourself. There are those who receive applause from crowds while their hearts are hollow, and there are those unknown to the world whose names I have spoken in the silence. I do not measure you by how many eyes look upon you. I measure you by your faithfulness to the truth I place within you. If you compromise to keep the peace, to avoid misunderstanding, or to prevent disappointment, you will build your life on a fragile comfort. Such a foundation does not collapse at once, but it cracks slowly every day as the weight of destiny presses upon it. Calling does not require you to become a hero. It only asks that you be honest, enough not to sell yourself for comfort. You rise from compromise not because you want to be different, but because your conscience has heard my voice. The fear of isolation will try to drag you back, but the peace in me will hold you where no one else understands. Do not expect others to cheer you when you tell the truth. Many only want you to remain silent so they can keep their souls undisturbed. Those I choose are not always victorious in the eyes of the world. They are victorious in mine when they choose obedience over compromise. You have nothing to prove. You only need to walk according to my voice, even if it is a very small step, as long as it steps out of the old comfort zone. I do not require you to understand the whole future. I only want you to understand that compromise is a soft rope that tightens the longer you wear it. When you choose truth, you feel lonely for a moment. When you choose compromise, you feel peace for a time. But that peace does not lead to me. It leads to fear the next time you are tested. Many souls lose their sensitivity simply because they accept "it's fine" one more time. They do not commit obvious sins. They slide off the path, one step at a time. I want you to stop before that sliding becomes your norm, because I love you too much to let you live beneath the truth that is in you. You ask me, why does your calling demand so much? But my child, calling does not demand, it reveals. It reveals you out of the garments you wear to please others. It reveals you out of the fear of displeasing, out of apologies that are unnecessary, out of the habit of shrinking yourself to fit someone else's heart. Before you stand before the crowd, I want you to stand before a very small but very deep truth you do not belong to. Compromise. Every time you choose truth, you open another door I have prepared. Every time you remain silent out of fear, you slowly close that door. I am not angry at you for the moments you hesitate. I simply call you back and tell you to rise, because the light within you was not created to be hidden by comfort. I spoke to Joshua when he stood before an unknown journey. Be strong and courageous. Joshua 1-9. I did not speak that word in the midst of battle. I spoke it before the battle began. You are the same. Courage is not given when you already succeed, but when you have not yet stepped, not because you are capable, but because I am faithful. You rise out of compromise not to prove yourself, but to protect what I have placed within you. When you begin to live according to truth in secret places, you will not be shaken among crowds. When you learn to stand up with no audience, you will not fear when noise surrounds you. And when you choose me before choosing comfort, you become one to whom I can entrust doors many beg for yet never prepare to walk through. You often measure yourself by what you do, by visible outcomes, by responses from the mouths of others. When you do something small and no one acknowledges it, you think it is insignificant, and you assume I am silent because there is nothing noteworthy. But, my child, I do not value a soul by the gaze of the masses or the compliments of strangers. I look where they never see, where intentions are formed in your heart before action ever occurs. When you speak a kind word with no witness, when you forgive without applause, when you choose truth while everyone is silent, it is then that I see you drawing nearer to me. The world only understands what the eye can see, but I read what you keep hidden in your heart. What you think is meaningless may be the very seed I planted in a season you have not yet recognized. There are moments when you act because you want to be acknowledged, to impress, to prove that you are worthy of love. The world teaches that value lies in achievement and performance. But I do not want your heart pulled by that law. I want it free from the weight of comparison. When you do what is right and no one understands, you think you have failed. When you refuse something that benefits you but violates your conscience, you fear being seen as foolish. Yet that is the moment the seed of peace within you takes root. Do not let the fleeting eyes of people cause you to doubt the work I am cultivating in your soul. Many judge only by speed. I judge by depth. Many care only for bloom. I nourish the roots so the tree can stand against the wind. There is a stage that every seedling must go through. It is small, fragile, seeming as though it cannot possibly survive a storm. Yet beneath the surface of the soil, its roots are reaching deeper day by day. No one sees that growth. No one knows the underground streams it finds. No one understands why it keeps standing still instead of stretching upward. People look at its thin stem and mock it, but I look at the roots, pushing down into the ground I have prepared for it. So it is with you. When I lay the foundation for you, I do not immediately raise up bright branches and leaves. I send your hidden roots downward, into patience, into prayer, into faithfulness, into small decisions no one sees. You think you are slow, but I call it stability. You think you have been left behind, but I am sheltering you from winds that will topple those who have only branches and no roots. The world is in a hurry to see you bloom, because it only looks at the sunlight and longs for what glitters. I want your life to endure, so I lead you into the dark soil only I know. It is not because I want to hide you, but because a life without roots will collapse before harvest. I do not want you to do something remarkable to prove anything. I want you to do what is right simply because you belong to me. Some will misunderstand, some will judge, some will despise your silence. They will think you are weak because you do not argue, that you lack ambition because you do not join the race. But, my child, A seedling does not need to explain why it has not yet risen. It only needs to keep drawing life from the soil. When you walk in me, you do not need to defend your motives before people. I know every motive fully, and I am the only one who has the right to weigh them. I did not call you to chase the eyes that understand you. I called you to live true to the light I placed within you. True glory is not when many people agree with you, but when your motives line up with me. You will find there are times the world mocks what I am nurturing in you. They call it vague, overcautious, unrealistic, but they do not see the roots. They do not see your prayers in the night, your self-control in your words, your patience when no one is watching. They do not recognize the gentle prompting I place in you when you long to change one small thing to make it right. So, do not let their scorn drive you to uproot yourself. If you remain steadfast, your season will come, not because you try to force yourself to bloom, but because your roots have grown deep enough to sustain the branches. You often ask me, why must I walk a road no one understands? Why is what I sense from you so different from what I see around me? And in those questions, you long for a complete explanation. You want a map laid out with clear milestones, so you will never make a mistake again. But my child, faith does not operate like reason. It is not an equation with an answer tucked neatly into a notebook. When I call you to walk, it is not because everything is ready, but because I know each step will deepen your trust. You may want to see the entire picture, but I show you only a small piece, so your heart may learn to follow me rather than your fear. If everything were clear, you would not need me. If everything were easy, you would never grow. Walking in me is not about finding what is easiest to understand, but about seeking my presence. There are seasons when I push you out of what is familiar, not to throw you into panic, but so you may see that the safety you cling to is only a shell. Reason tells you to stay still, because staying still does not hurt. Emotion tells you that if you do nothing, no one will laugh at you. But I know your heart will wither if you remain too long where you are, like a branch, locked in the shade, losing its instinct to reach for the light. Only when you accept walking without full understanding does the seed of courage begin to sprout. You often think obedience is only needed for great things, but you have not yet realized that the smallest decisions, a simple apology, stepping back from what is not yours, taking one shaky step forward, are the very lessons I use to train your soul. I do not need you to be impressive. I need you to nod to what I am inviting you into. You want to use your reason to analyze my will, but reason is a measuring stick too short to gauge the plans I have for you. Your reasoning is shaped by experience, by failure, by caution, and by the fear of loss. It has value, but it is not the compass that can guide your soul. When you try to explain every step I lead you through, you turn your spiritual journey into a logic puzzle with no solution. Even when you think you understand, I may still lead you in another direction, because my goal is not to make you smarter, but to make you more sensitive to my voice. Obedience is not walking when you have enough evidence. It is walking when you know my hand is still holding you. And it is precisely when you dare to move forward in the silence of heaven that you begin to hear my voice more clearly in your heart. There are paths I call you to walk that no one around you will affirm. Some will say you are reckless, others will say you are a dreamer. Still others will advise you to calm down and choose the safer route. They are not necessarily wrong from where they stand, because they do not see what I am kindling in you. But my child, calling is not the consensus of the crowd. It is a private response between you and me. When you begin to submit to me, not to prove anything to the world, but simply because you know it is from me, you will discover a secret many never learn. The deepest peace does not come from words of support, but from the moment you sense my companionship in a decision no one understands. I do not ask you to have enough answers to convince people. I ask you to have enough courage to walk with me. I know that each time you stand at a new threshold, you hesitate and ask, "Am I sure?" And in that moment, I do not answer you with arguments. I do not send you lofty phrases. I simply give you a small, quiet peace, neither loud nor dramatic, but enough to steady your heart. Obedience is not a memory of the past, it is an action of today. It does not require perfection, only trust. You take one step, and I will teach you the second. You are strong not because you know everything, but because you know that I will not leave you. Courage is not when others understand you. It is when you understand that I chose you long before you knew your own dreams. You have always sought confirmation from the voices around you. You want to see agreeing eyes, so you can be sure your choice is not off track. But my child, true courage does not draw its strength from the crowd. It draws from the knowing that I am placing my hand upon the path you walk. While you stand at the crossroads, people look at the surface of circumstances and measure by convenience. But I look at the identity I have sown in you. Others measure you by your results. I measure you by your willingness. Others long to see outcomes. I long to see obedience. And only when you know you belong to me will you no longer need the world's permission to step forward. Souls that do not yet understand what it means to be chosen will ask you why you do not take the easier path, why you do not live the way everyone else lives. They will say you are making things hard for yourself. They will advise you to return to the safe zone. They will weave very reasonable arguments to delay your dreams, but they do not hear the voice that I am whispering inside your heart. True courage is not taking grand steps in front of a crowd. It is holding your course even when everyone else turns away. A rower does not ask the wind, he looks only to the shore. The wind may change direction, the waves may shake the boat, but when the rower knows clearly where he is heading, the rhythm of his hands no longer depends on the weather. So it is with you. When you know that I have chosen you, the confusion of the world no longer has the right to define you. I do not ask you to explain your journey to anyone. I do not expect you to convince the world that you are right. I only want you to guard the inner silence where I have placed my promise. If you look for agreement as proof of your calling, you will always be knocking on hearts I have never shaped for the path you are on. If you look for someone outside to validate your steps, you will lose the spiritual trajectory I have planted within. My calling is not a debate, it is a revelation. You do not need the world to understand before you step. You step so the world may have a chance to witness what I have done. This has been my way from the beginning. I call those nobody notices. I place them on paths that reason cannot measure, so that the light does not come from them, but from me. There will be times when you feel lonely, not because you have been abandoned, but because you have stepped out of the noisy zone of compromise. When you begin to follow what I have placed within you, not everyone will rejoice. Some will fall silent, some will doubt, some will step back to wait for your failure. But my child, that loneliness is not a sign that you are wrong. It is the space I use to fortify your heart. Before you stand in front of the crowd, I want you to stand firm within. Before your voice is heard in public, I want you to know my voice in secret. If you do not yet trust me when it is only the two of us, you will tremble when every eye is turned toward you. And I know you were not made to tremble, you were made to walk. True courage does not come from self-confidence, but from knowing that I am the one who has chosen you. If your courage is built on experience, then when experience fails, you will collapse. If it is built on wisdom, then when reason reaches its limit, you will stop. But if it is built on me, you will continue, even when you cannot yet see the shore. A rower does not ask the wind, and you do not need to ask for praise. I have fixed the destination before you, and when you take hold of my hand, the wind becomes temporary, the waves become training. I chose you not because you were strong, but because I want you to know what it means to be strong in me. And when you understand that, you will no longer need to prove anything. Your very presence will be a testimony. To be chosen by me is not for you to stand higher than others, but to live faithfully to the light you have received from my hand. That light does not come as a crown or a proclamation. It comes as a reminder that your soul can no longer live in old compromises. I do not place you on a pedestal so people can look at you. I place you in the quiet of your inner life so that you yourself realize it is time to live differently. When my light touches you, it makes what once seemed normal no longer fit, gentle. Pretense becomes a burden. Half-true, half-false words turn into a restlessness in your heart. You do not change because of social pressure. You change because truth has awakened within you. And when truth awakens, it does not ask whether anyone accepts it. It only asks whether you will walk to it. I know you once thought that being chosen meant you had to be stronger than others, had to dare to stand before every gaze, had to do what no one else would do. But being chosen in me is not performance. It is returning to what I planted in you from the beginning. I do not demand that you outshine others. I ask that you be honest. I do not require you to become a symbol. I require you to keep your heart clean when the light shines on it. Those I choose are not flawless souls, but those humble enough to trust me while everything is still unclear. You are not chosen to dominate. You are chosen to serve through a life I have transformed. That service does not begin on a platform. It begins with your willingness to let go of the small compromises no one else notices. There will be moments when you ask yourself, why do I bear more pressure than others? Why can I not live as lightly as they do? I do not lead you into trials to drain you. I lead you into trials so you remember that the light that has touched you did not come by accident. When a room has been opened to the sun, it cannot return to its old darkness. Light does not change the shape of the objects. It only reveals their true form. So it is with you. My light does not turn you into someone else. It simply calls by name what you already are, a soul led by me. When you feel uneasy about what the majority accepts, do not think you are too sensitive. It is only the sign that light has come, and light point. You no longer belong to the former place. Being chosen is not a license to escape responsibility, but an invitation into maturity. I do not hand you a calling and then leave you to struggle alone. I go with you in every smallest step. There will be days when you realize that no is a harder choice than yes, that staying silent before temptation is heavier than compromising to keep the peace. But, my child, no one sees the roots when they push into the soil. Roots are not beautiful, not praised, but they are what nourish the entire tree. Your growth is the same. It unfolds quietly. Before the bloom bursts forth, I do not measure you by what people see in a single moment. I measure you by the hidden decisions only you and I know. To be chosen by me is the affirmation that you already carry light, and light does not negotiate with darkness. You do not need to prove to the world that you have changed. You only need not return to what I have set you free from. You do not need another sign that you are on the right path. Sometimes the only sign is the steadfast peace that remains in the midst of hard choices. Being chosen does not tell you to be perfect. It tells you not to. Turn your back on the truth you have received. And when you live according to that light, not to be seen, but so that I may use you as a small window through which light pours into other souls, then your choosing begins to carry its true meaning. You think being chosen by me means stepping above the crowd, like someone standing on a high peak looking down at souls who do not yet understand the way. But being chosen by me means walking among them, carrying light not to prove yourself, but to illuminate the steps that are still unsteady. The light I give you is not only for you. It is an invitation for you to become a bridge between human weakness and my steadfastness. The one who withdraws from community out of fear of being hurt will lose the chance to be used by me to heal others. The one who hides away to avoid being misunderstood will eventually forget that the light I placed in them was never meant to be concealed. You are not a lonely flame on a hidden mountain. You are a lamp set within a house, so that darkness has no right to overrun the souls who are searching for a way. Those I choose do not live in an invisible tower of spiritual superiority. They do not stand apart. They do not see themselves as the standard for others, because they know everything begins with mercy. You will meet souls who stumble in the same way you once did, and you will remember that I did not judge you. I raised you up and helped you stand, and so you must also lift them. Your light is not to expose the faults of others, but to show them the path home. Those who truly carry light do not make others feel smaller. They help them realize that they still have hope. You cannot help anyone through comparison. You can only help them through compassion that has been refined in me. To be chosen by me means accepting that your growth is bound up with the people I place beside you. I do not put you in the midst of community as a guard, but as one who carries the gentle breath of my presence to hearts that have grown dry. You do not have to solve all of their problems. You only need to resist the urge to turn away quickly when they are weak. People will want you to choose distance in order to protect your reputation, but I want you to step closer in order to protect love. At times you will be misunderstood, seen as naive or too soft, but I do not look at those opinions. I look at your heart when you choose mercy instead of standing above. Love does not transform a person overnight, but it lays the foundation for truth to do its work in the timing I appoint. There will be seasons when you feel you are carrying more weight than others. In those moments, do not think I am punishing you. I am training you so that your heart becomes large enough to embrace other souls without breaking. Those I choose do not demand perfection from their community, because they remember that I was patient with them in their most fragile days. You do not walk among my people to bring demands, but to bring gentleness. That gentleness is not weakness. It is the result of having learned to lean on me instead of on expectations. When you stand among them not to prove something, but simply to be present, they will sense me without needing you to explain everything. Those I choose do not separate themselves from the community to keep themselves uncontaminated. They remain within it, as a clear spring in the midst of dry ground. When you know you do not have to be better than anyone, you finally become free enough to love them. You do not have to speak much to be trusted. You only need to keep the light in its right place and not let pride cover it. The truly strong in me are not those who go ahead and leave others behind, but those who turn back to take the hand of the one who is trembling at the rear. I do not choose you to be a wall of separation. I choose you to be a road that leads shattered souls back to my peace. And when you live this way, you will understand that being chosen is not power, it is the privilege of joining the work of healing that I am already doing among my people. You often think that difference begins the moment I lay my hand upon your life, but the truth is that it is my calling that creates distance between you and the things you once found familiar. I do not pluck you out of community to display you. I place you among them to sow a life that not everyone will immediately recognize. Others may see. Your silence is something strange, but I know it is maturity speaking within you. When you stop chasing applause, you begin to hear my voice more clearly. And once you hear, you cannot return to your former compromises. Not because you want to appear different, but because your soul can no longer breathe in the narrow chest of pretense. Isaiah 43:1 speaks one truth large enough for your entire life. I have called you by name. A soul called by me no longer lives by the rhythm of the crowd, but by the quiet rhythm I have set within it. People will ask, why have you changed? Why are you no longer like before? You do not need to argue, because change that comes from me always surpasses words. I do not make you different to create noise. I make you different so you will no longer dissolve into things that pull you away from purpose. Some will call you proud, some will say you are too cautious. Some will think you have become strange to them, but I am opening a door, and those who do not hear my voice will not see the reason. The gentle loneliness in your heart is not a punishment. It is like the layer of soil around a seed before it breaks into the light. When a patchy seed begins to sprout, it no longer looks like it once did, and that is not betrayal, it is faithfulness to the life inside it. My child, many learn to live for approval, but you are called to live as one who knows you belong to me. Your difference is not a plan you invented, it is the consequence of following the calling I have placed within you. Those who have not heard my voice will measure you by their standards, but I look at you through the wisdom of the source. Perhaps you once sat among the crowd and felt you fit in, but then a moment came when you could no longer join them in what they chose. That is not because you think you are better, it is because my will has touched your heart, making what once felt normal now feel too small. Your difference does not come from intellect. It comes from light slipping into the dark places you once endured in silence. When light appears, you cannot dwell in the old darkness as before. That is not an accident. It is a path. Calling always pulls you out of places where you once felt fine. It calls you away from convenience toward the place where your soul is expanded. I do not push you into isolation so that you feel weak. I am teaching you how to stand on what is truly yours. Others will look at the surface and say, you have changed your personality. But I look at the motive and see that you are simply responding to my call. You do not need to persuade anyone or search for someone to fully understand you, because what I am doing in you is not something everyone can recognize in the early stages. Just as a tender shoot seems unimpressive, yet already has roots sinking into the soil. So it is with you. Roots do not show themselves, but they are what keep the tree standing firm against the wind, and you too are being prepared to stand firm in seasons of wind that have not yet come. When I call you by name, I am not merely creating an outward distinction. I am inscribing you into the place where I have set my purpose. When I say you, it is not because the world needs to see you, but because you need to. Remember that your identity does not rest in explanation, but in response. Those who are chosen by me will recognize one another by a look, not by debate. For they know that difference is not a wall, but a reminder. Your path is no longer the same as theirs. When you rise out of compromise, you do not stand out by shouting. You become clear through peace. And as you walk through the door I open, you will realize that difference was never the goal. It was the bridge that led you into the journey I prepared for you long ago. You often mistake outward steadiness for the peace I place within you, so you avoid confrontation, steer away from the moments that exhaust you, and believe that doing so is wisdom. But my child, peace is not born from avoiding storms. Peace is born from knowing whose hand holds yours in the storm. When you avoid a conversation out of fear of being misunderstood, you think you are preserving harmony, but your soul is quietly being compressed. When you refuse to step through a door I open merely because others are not ready, you are telling your heart, I am not enough. You call it caution, but I see the exhaustion within you. The truth is, fear does not disappear when you avoid it. It only hides in silence and slowly corrodes the trust you place in me. And the more you avoid, the more it grows like moss, silently gripping stone, no sound, yet strong enough to cover the entire rock if no one touches it. True peace does not soothe weakness. True peace strengthens humility. It does not tell you to flee from the place you are meant to stand, but teaches you to stand in the stillness of faith. Some believe peace comes when everything is gentle, when everyone agrees, when every smile remains, and no waves appear. But the peace I give does not depend on the views of the world. It does not require the approval of the crowd. It requires only a heart surrendered to me. When you walk the path I open, even if others doubt, rage, or fall, silent peace remains like an underground stream flowing beneath your feet. You cannot see, yet it holds every step. Even when you tremble, even when your heart asks, what if I am wrong? Peace whispers, keep following me. That is how I shape you, not with noise, but with gentle steadfastness. Do not misunderstand. I do not throw you into trials and tell you to endure. I lead you step by step, so you may discover the strength I have planted within you. When you walk in my will, you will realize my peace is not comfort. It is conviction. It is like the warmth of a fire in a cold room, not enough to burn, but enough to keep you from freezing. You will begin to breathe more evenly, to look into your own heart instead of the crowd, to stand before a door not yet fully open, believing that I am turning the lock from the other side. That peace needs no evidence, because it is evidence itself. It does not fall from heaven like an abrupt rainfall. It rises within you like a small flame I protect from the wind. And if you guard that flame through obedience, it will grow, it will brighten, and it will light your path, even when your eyes are not yet accustomed to the light. There are times you think peace means, don't touch it anymore, leave it as it is. This is not the time to change. But that is only fear in disguise, a compromise decorated with gentle words. When your soul knows what must be done but your lips say later, true peace withdraws from your heart, not because I punish you, but because you turn away from the truth already planted within. My beloved child, peace does not nourish hesitation. It does not collude with delay. It never says, wait a little longer, and everything will sort itself out. Peace appears only when you step into my will, when you allow me to lead instead of trying to persuade circumstances to align with you. There are doors that will never open for those who wait outside for convenience. They open only to those who walk toward them in faith. True peace is the sign that you have chosen me, not safety. It is my quiet companionship when you dare to do what you know you cannot accomplish by your own strength. I do not say, do not fear, no one will oppose you. I say, do not fear, I am with you. I do not say, everyone will understand you. I say, let me understand you first. When you learn this, you will no longer need to hide, no longer need to soften yourself, no longer need to play agreeable just to stay unnoticed. You will stand as someone who knows they are loved, not someone chasing approval. And when you walk in true peace, you will no longer ask whether you are doing the right thing. You will ask me, where do I step next today? You often assume peace comes from pleasing others, so you try to remain pleasant, to smile even when tired, to accept what you know is not aligned with my truth, just to avoid judgment. I do not blame you, for that is how the soul protects itself when it fears rejection. But my child, peace is not born from forced silence. It is born from the courage to embrace the truth within. When you tell yourself it's fine, while the depths of your being cry for help, you are building a wall to cover the wound. I have never called you to live like that. I did not create you to become a mirror reflecting the emotions of others. I created you to become a soul that reflects my light. True peace does not come when you make others comfortable. It comes when you dare to open your heart to me and say, it hurts here. There are very small cracks within your heart, cracks you believe no one needs to know about, so you bury them beneath composure and calm explanations. But it is precisely those cracks that drain the breath from your soul day by day. I do not wait for you to be strong before I come. I come when you are weak, when you admit that you are not okay, when you no longer have the strength to pretend you are the one who understands everything. Honesty before me is not exposing failure. It is giving me the right to heal. I do not need you to prove stability. I need you to recognize that peace can only rest where masks no longer exist. You may convince everyone that you are fine, but I know the nights when you lie still and your breath falters. I know the places where you have carried too much for too long, and I remain there, waiting for you to look toward me, waiting for you to release what you think you must bear alone. You think honesty before me will make you weaker, more vulnerable, less in control. But in me, every weakness is kept safe. I do not exploit what you confess. I do not revisit old mistakes. I do not record your disappointments to judge you. I am the place where you may breathe deeply after years of restraint. I am the place where you may speak the words you never dared to show anyone. When you allow me to see the darkest corners of your heart, I do not turn away. I reach in to restructure your soul. Peace does not come from concealment. Peace comes when you allow me to enter the room you have locked for so long, and you will discover something strange. When you speak truth to me, you will no longer fear speaking truth to yourself. You think peace is a state where no one blames you, no one is upset, no one leaves, so you compromise to preserve harmony, stay silent to avoid conflict, and bow your head to keep things calm. But my child, that is only surface-level comfort. It is like a thin coat of paint over a wall, already rotting inside, beautiful at first glance. But the moment rain touches it, the surface peels away. The peace I give does not avoid the rain. It makes you a refuge. When you are honest with me, you begin to learn how to stand before the wind. You no longer need to explain yourself to everyone. You no longer need to prove anything. You no longer need to win every argument. You only need to know that you have not betrayed the voice I placed within your heart. That place, not the applause of the world, is the beginning of peace. There are words you can only speak to me. I'm tired. I'm afraid. I'm not enough. And I do not withdraw my hand when I hear them. I do not love you because you perform well. I love you because you are mine. When you step into that honesty, you begin to understand that peace is not a reward for the flawless, but a home for those who know how to return. I do not require you to be strong for me to accept you. I call you to me so that I may make you strong. And when you have tasted this, you will no longer need to satisfy every gaze, because you will know the only gaze that has the authority to name you. Many times you wait until you are good enough, strong enough, free from your old mistakes before daring to seek me, as though I only accept souls already polished. But my peace does not wait for you to be perfected. My peace arrives when you are hesitant, tangled, still unsure of who you are. You look at yourself like someone who must pass a test, while I look at you like one learning to take steps slow, but not giving up. Peace is not a flag marking the finish line, it is the breath. You inhale whenever your heart wants to run away. When you pause and breathe in me, even for a single moment, I plant peace in your heart like drops of water falling into dry soil. That peace does not require applause, agreement, or excellence. It only requires you to open the door, even if that door is so small that only a sliver of light can enter. There are times you think peace is the absence of obstacles, but I have allowed you to walk through seasons of headwind, so you may understand that peace can exist even in the storm. I never promised to remove every tempest. I only promised that I would be inside it with you. When you hear the roar of waves, your heart trembles, but if you bow your head to seek me, you will find beneath the chaos the quiet rhythm of my heartbeat. You do not have to fight every gust of wind to prove your strength. You only need to know that I never leave you when it passes through. My peace is like water flowing through stone, not hurried but resolute, not showy but enduring. It is not shallow encouragement, but a silent presence I place within you so that you do not sink. Many souls mistake peace as a gift for the righteous, the victorious, the unblemished. But my child, my peace is not given to those who pass exams, but to those who are still learning how to stand again. I see you on nights when you no longer have the strength to explain yourself to anyone, when you only whisper, "What is wrong with me?" I hear those questions as the groan of a soul that has carried too much for too long. Peace does not arrive to rewrite your verdict. It comes to lift from your shoulders the burden of self-condemnation. When you allow me to hold that weakness, I do not transform you into a different person in one instant. I simply place breath in you so you can take one more step. That humility is the fertile soil from which peace grows. I do not require you to be happy to come to me. I only require you to be truthful. You may come to me in tears, in disappointment, in questions that still have no answers. I do not treat those emotions as obstacles. I receive them as proof that you are still alive, still yearning for good, still searching for a way back to me. Peace is not a blinding glare. It is the small candle you hold in your hand when every other light has gone out. When you keep it in your heart, even trembling, you still see enough to take another step. I do not demand that you run. I do not press you to reach the destination at once. I only want you not to turn your back on that light. Remember this, my child. I have never placed peace as a decoration at the end of the road. I place peace as a coat you can drape over your shoulders every morning before you face the eyes, the words, and the thoughts of the world. My peace does not teach you to escape from life. It teaches you to enter life without losing yourself. When you are honest with me, not to be praised, but to protect your soul, peace comes like an old friend, not loud, not boasting, simply sitting beside you and making your heart less heavy. And from there, you will learn something the world rarely understands. Peace does not make you weaker. Peace is the gentle strength that keeps you from collapsing. There are moments when you stand before a door and believe that only when you are calm enough, stable enough, strong enough, will you be permitted to go forward. You wait for fear to disappear, as though courage is a feeling that comes after you conquer yourself. But courage does not grow from the absence of trembling. It grows from refusing to let trembling choose your steps. I have watched you many times try to erase all worry before acting, and every time you fail, you think you are not good enough. The truth is, you do not need to be free of fear to begin. You only need to know that I am walking with you. Fear is not the enemy. It is only a reminder that you are stepping into something you have not experienced before. Courage is not a perfect condition, but the act of trusting me more than your own emotions. When you hold my hand, trembling will not lead you astray. I have placed within you invitations that only light up once you move forward. They do not appear when you stay still. They bloom only as you walk, even if your steps are slow. Many believe that I give direction only to the strong, but I give guidance to trembling souls who are willing to obey. When you wait for certainty, you may unknowingly miss the subtle leading I have already sown within your heart. I do not guide you by thunder. I guide you by a gentle pull toward what is right. When you step not to prove your ability, but to respond to me, you begin to see that fear loses its power. I do not require you to silence your anxiety. I only ask one thing. Do not let it speak in my place. I am still whispering in your heart, even when fear tries to speak louder. Your trembling does not offend me. I do not turn away because you are afraid. I only ask that you do not turn away because of fear. I know there are moments when you walk and your hands are cold, your heart beats fast, your knees feel like they will buckle. These sensations do not mean you are wrong. They simply tell you that the land ahead is unfamiliar to you. If you wait until you feel fully ready, you will miss seasons in which I intend to shape you. The maturity I give does not come from perfection before the journey begins, but from stepping forward while you are still unfinished. Courage is something I place within you like a small lamp, not to illuminate the whole path, but enough to see the next step. I will not abandon you in the darkness of your hesitant steps. There are souls who think that if they tremble, they are unworthy of a calling, but I tell you, it is precisely in trembling that I place nearness. When you tremble because you do not know the outcome, you must cling to what you know for certain. I do not change. I do not rely on your willpower to fulfill my purposes. I rely on your yes. When you say, I will walk, even afraid, your soul has already placed me above every fleeting emotion. I do not ask you to be numb before challenges. I ask you to understand that emotions are not a compass. I am the compass, and when you allow me to lead, your trembling becomes the witness that you no longer depend on your own strength. That courage is not loud, it is the quietness of mature faith. Look back at the seasons in which you kept walking even when you did not understand. Not every decision flooded you with confidence. There were times you only had enough strength to say, "Please go with me." I went with you, and you did not collapse. That was not because you were stronger than others, but because I held you at every step when you could not see the destination. I want you to remember, trembling steps are still counted by me as steps of faith, not to glorify weakness, but to reveal my faithfulness. When you realize this, you will wait less for the feeling of perfection and feel less need to prove yourself. You will learn to breathe steadily in me, like one who walks through the night knowing that dawn will come. And my child, that dawn does not rest in your strength. It rests in the fact that you do not let go of my hand. You once thought that courage was a face that shows no emotion, a silence when you are doubted, a body that does not tremble even when your soul wants to weep. You tried to brace yourself, to appear strong like a slab of stone without a crack, so that those around you would not see the weakness inside. But I tell you that the strength I give does not live in that shell. Courage is not wrapping your heart so tightly that no one can touch it. It is allowing the truth you know from me to be seen, even when it brings inconvenience. You have hidden the light I placed within you simply because you feared the eyes that would ask, "Why are you not like us?" But light is not made to lie under dark cloth. It is made to shine. You tremble because you think that if you reveal truth, people will question you more than you can bear. But my child, my truth does not depend on your capacity to endure. It rests on my presence in you. And when you allow me to step out with you, truth ceases to be a burden and becomes a path. Many imagine that strength means collision, means fighting, means turning words into a shield. Yet there are souls I teach to live strong by removing the thin cloth from the mirror of their own heart. You have hung that mirror in an enclosed room and covered it because you did not want to clearly see what I am doing in you. When you drew that cloth over it, you thought you were protecting yourself from pressure, from scrutiny, from the disappointment of not yet measuring up. But in reality, you were covering one of the graces I have given you, the ability to see yourself in my light. Courage is not hiding the mirror. It is daring to pull the cloth away and accept the image I am touching. You do not need to display yourself, nor do you need to defend yourself. You only need not to hide what I have done. When you dare to look yourself in the eye, you will know how to stand firm before the world. My child, I do not ask you to harden yourself so you will never be hurt. If you build walls around your soul, you will block the very stream of living water I long to pour in. I do not require you to endure harshness to prove your worth. I only ask that you do not distort truth because you fear being misunderstood. Many times you think, if I soften, they will see me as weak. But gentleness is not weakness. Gentleness is the sign of one standing on an unshakable foundation. The more you cling to a cold exterior, the further you step from true strength. I do not teach you to be hardened. I teach you to be honest. Hardness can shield you from a few judgments, but honesty will free you from them all. People can look at the outside and pronounce their opinions, but I look at the motives in your heart where you have learned to lean on me. When you choose truth instead of a defensive shell, you no longer have to strain to play a role that is not yours. You do not need to freeze your emotions to prove that you are steady. You only need to keep your steadiness in me. I have seen you stay silent many times simply because you were afraid that others would think you were off track. I have seen you nod along just to avoid stirring the waters. Yet not every wave is a threat. There are waves I myself send to carry you out of the shallows. When you speak the truth you have received from me, even if others do not agree, your soul becomes clearer. You are no longer swept away by praise, nor suffocated by judgment. True courage does not seek immediate safety. It seeks what is upright, and that uprightness is given by me like a hidden compass, not dazzling, but never wrong. I know you have hidden truth in order to preserve peace, to protect reputation, to keep a fragile calm. But peace does not come from extinguishing the voice I have placed in your heart. Reputation is not built on silence toward what is true. Quiet is not the absence of conflict. It is walking in my light, even when that light makes others squint. You do not have to explain everything I do. You only need not deny that I am at work. Truth does not need your protection. You need mine so you will not lose truth. When you stand with me, truth will stand on its own. Remember this and keep it close. You are not called to be perfect in the eyes of the world. You are called to be truthful in my hands. You have confused strength with excitement, with those surging waves of emotion in impulsive moments. You wanted to act as soon as your feelings rose, believing that this was courage. But when you chased that brief wind, your soul ended up exhausted, like a flame that flares high and then dies because it has no rooted source. I do not teach you courage that way. I do not call you to step when agitation pushes you. I call you to step when quiet peace confirms. Excitement makes you feel powerful for a few minutes, but when the surge recedes, you feel empty. True, courage does not drive you higher, it settles you deeper. I do not want you to be a flash of lightning. I want you to be an oil lamp that burns steadily in my hand. When you lean on excitement, you constantly need more praise, more recognition, more reasons to continue. You search for proof that you are right, that you are being stirred by God. But my child, excitement belongs to emotion. Courage belongs to the soul. Courage does not need an audience, does not need applause, does not need a heated moment to be born. It comes like steady breathing, like sure footsteps on the ground. Even when the sky is still foggy, you do not need to feel great to do what I teach you. You only need to feel at peace. The trembling in your hands does not diminish the value of your step. What diminishes it is when you walk according to emotion instead of according to me. When you rest in me, you will stop chasing temporary thrills because you have found a deeper harbor within. I have seen you step forward only because you feared missing a chance, not because I moved you. You acted out of fear of being left behind, because others seemed to shine, because the world rushed ahead like a pack of lights, torrent. In those moments, you thought you were being brave, but in truth, it was panic wearing the mask of decisiveness. True courage is not a reaction to the urgency of time. It is a gentle response to my call. When you seek peace, you will understand that I am not in a hurry. I do not drive you with sudden surges of feeling. I lead you with a settledness in your spirit. You must believe this. One step taken in deep peace is worth more than 10 taken in restless excitement. For one step at rest in me will open the right path, while 10 steps in haste will only bring you back to where you started. You do not need to turn yourself into a blazing fire to prove your faith. Faith is not revealed by the size of emotion, but by the steadiness of the heart when no one is cheering. True courage does not make you tremble. It makes you quiet. It is not an eruption, but endurance. Not a flash of lightning, but a lamp in a long night. When you possess true courage, you no longer need to speak loudly so others will hear. You speak rightly so that I may bear witness. You do not seek immediate victory. You seek the steadfastness of what is right. You do not ask, do they understand me? You ask, am I faithful to what you have placed within my heart? When that question becomes the axis of your life, Peace will bloom like a seed breaking through dark soil, not loud, but unstoppable. True courage does not make you angry, it makes you gentle. It does not drive you to run ahead, like someone fleeing the storm, but makes you stand firm, like one who knows the wind will change direction. You do not need to prove anything, you only need to be present. I do not ask you to win every battle. I only want you to step into the battles I have appointed for you. The battles of others may look impressive, but they are not the path I prepared for you. Let your heart absorb this. Peace is not the reward after courage. Peace is the evidence of true courage. If you walk and your heart is restless, stop and seek me. If you walk and your soul is quiet like still waters, then continue, for I am walking beside you. You once believed that strength must be displayed, that only when the world sees you standing tall, hears you speaking loudly, and acknowledges your achievements, are you truly strong. You learned from the voices of the world that the weak must make noise to be respected, that to avoid being overshadowed, you must push a little harder, speak before anyone else speaks, strike first so they cannot strike you. But my child, strength in me does not make you tense, it makes you relaxed. When I place true strength in your heart, it does not appear like a flickering torch, but like steady breath in your chest. It does not push you forward, it holds you in the exact place I have appointed. True strength does not generate noise, it creates stillness, where other souls begin to notice what lies within you. You do not need to introduce yourself or demand recognition. The peace in your eyes speaks on your behalf. There are people who enter a room with a fierce presence, yet they make the atmosphere tense, like water disturbed by thrown stones. They want to dominate, to claim space, to prove they are worthy of attention. But the souls I have touched do not behave like that. They do not rush to the center of the crowd. They simply sit down as someone who knows they already have a place, and the entire room quietly shifts its rhythm, not because you impose anything, but because you are no longer controlled by the need to be seen. When I dwell in you, you no longer step forward from ego, you step forward from my presence, and those who are weary, lost, or searching for safety will no longer recognize you as a mere person. They will recognize you as a resting place. They slow down, their voices soften, they begin to listen without knowing why. I do not need you to create an effect. I only need you to be faithful to the light I have placed within you. True strength is not breaking every barrier, but discerning which barriers do not belong to you. You once believed you had to argue to defend what is right, that you must confront to prove your conviction. But as I raise you, you will see that some words only require silence, some battles simply require you to walk past, some oppositions only require a quiet smile. Your silence is not weakness, it is the recognition that your soul does not need to be spent on battlegrounds I have not called you to. A soul with true strength does not break down every door. It stands before the door I open and walks through. You do not need to confront everything that blocks you. You only need to discern which direction is the call of my voice. And when you walk in the direction I show, you will see the environment adjust on its own, like a river bending around a steadfast mountain. True strength is not forcing the world to change. It is holding your identity until the world recognizes me in you. Do not mistake peace for passivity. There are souls who carry peace, but run from challenges, deny responsibility, and turn silence into a hiding place. That is not strength. It is exhaustion, wearing the mask of wisdom. True strength does not retreat into the shadows to avoid storms. It stands still in the rain, knowing I hold the umbrella above your head. You do not pretend to have peace. You are given peace. You do not act like you are okay. You stand firm because you have learned not to depend on applause. When I give you strength, it is not armor for display. It is fertile soil for your roots to grow deep. My strength does not make you stand out by competition. It makes you radiate a certainty that others cannot easily explain. They will not understand why you do not collapse under pressure, why you are not flustered, why you do not enter pointless rivalries. But I know because your roots have found water, and then you will realize something many spend their whole lives discovering. True strength is not in the words you speak about yourself, but in the space you allow me to speak through you. It is not sharp argument, nor quick wit. nor bold action that causes another soul to pause, but the sense that they are standing before something unshaken. Like a weary traveler in the desert, they do not seek a blazing torch, they seek the shade of a tree. When I make you into that tree, you do not need to invite anyone, they will come on their own, not to hear you preach, but simply to breathe again without fear. True strength is a presence that speaks, not a voice that demands recognition. And when you live in that strength, you do not need to prove you are chosen, you simply live as one who belongs to me. There was a time when you believed that to change others, you must speak a lot, explain thoroughly, or prove that you were right. You believed that obedience and peace must be imposed, that if you were persuasive enough or strong enough, people would understand my will in you. But my child, true strength never comes with pressure. It does not push a soul into conformity, nor force them to see through your perspective. When I place strength within you, it is not the authority to control, but the capacity to create space. You become a keeper of the door, not someone who drags others across its threshold. And where you stand in quietness, troubled minds will discover relief. That peace does not come from many words. It comes from a presence that knows how to listen. You have grieved when you saw those you love harm themselves, choose paths far from me, or drown in the noise you once left behind. You asked me, why can't I pull them out? Why can't I make them listen? But I have whispered to your heart that my love does not coerce. I do not use fear to produce change. I use patience. I do not conquer souls by force. I lead them to recognition by gentleness. That is why I do not ask you to become a loudspeaker, but a harbor. When they grow exhausted from the noise, they will seek the place where quiet remains. When they are worn out by argument, they will seek the space where peace requires no explanation. And when they draw near to you, they will encounter me before they hear a single word from your lips. True strength is never in a hurry. It knows that every soul needs its own time to return. You may see someone wandering, but you will never fully know the layers of fog within them. You see wrong choices, but you do not see the wounds that drove them to those paths. I do not call you to become the judge of those decisions. I call you to become a witness to my peace. When you walk through life with a heart no longer in conflict, no longer obsessed with being right, the souls who meet you will ask themselves, why does this person not compete? Why are they not afraid? And that question itself is the knocking I use. It is not you who convinces them, it is I who touch them through your calm. You are not the shout in the storm, you are the shade of a tree at noon. Do not think that in order to guide others, you must pull them upward by your own strength. Some souls only need to see that you do not tremble before the storm to find their footing. You do not need to correct every thought they have, do not need to refute every argument, do not need to explain every question. What I build in you is not meant to complete the task of saying everything correctly, but to become a living example. You once wanted to save each person, wanted to change every heart, feared that if you stayed silent, they would not understand. But true strength does not enter anyone's life with urgency. It stands at the open door, does not close, does not pull, does not push. Whoever steps through is one who is ready. Whoever remains outside is one whom I will continue calling for another season. I am not afraid of time. I am not rushed. I only want you to believe that I work within the human heart in ways it can bear. There is one secret I want you to remember always. You are not the light that illuminates every mind. You are only the window through which my light passes. If you try to shine by your own strength, you will grow tired, you will be disappointed, you will blame yourself for not having enough influence. But when you let me be the source of light, you will see things unfold beyond anything you imagined. People do not change because you are full of logic, but because they feel a presence without judgment. The weary soul does not run toward safety because of theory, but because of warmth. And that warmth does not come from your perfection. It comes from no longer needing to prove anything at all. I teach you not so that you may win every conversation, but so that you may become a place where peace is opened. A door does not urge anyone to step in. It simply remains, and those who need it will find it. There are souls who pass through your life just to find a breath, like a traveler searching for shade after a long journey under the sun. They do not need a sermon. They do not need a philosophy. They do not need you to prove how much you understand me. They only need to see someone who no longer trembles under judgment, who no longer rushes to justify themselves, who no longer tries to please everyone. When you walk in the peace I give, not by forcing yourself, but by presence, they will recognize a different space, not the space of the world, but mine. This peace does not compete, does not push, does not seek the spotlight. It is as natural as breath, yet it holds the power to open doors for souls that never dared to step into truth. You do not need to point their eyes toward you. The quiet within you will turn their gaze toward me. And when that happens, they will remember there was once someone who passed through their life and did not make them feel small, only made them a little more calm. You think that in order to be used by me, you must be the strongest in the room, must know how to answer every question, must stand on the platform for others to listen. But true strength does not operate that way. I do not need you to control the atmosphere. I only need you to be fully present in me. When you stop trying to make everyone love you, you begin to let me love them through you. When you cease to be the center of the story, I naturally become the center. The weary do not run to places full of noise. They run to places of gentleness. I teach you to become a sign not by loudness, but by tranquility. When someone on the verge of collapse encounters you, they see something they thought was gone. Could it be that I am still held by someone? You do not need to answer that question. I will answer it inside them. Becoming a sign does not mean becoming a perfect symbol. It means becoming someone who no longer hides the truth. When you no longer need to pretend to be okay, another soul will understand that they too need not pretend before me. I use your honesty like a small lamp placed on a windowsill. Not dazzling, not overpowering, but enough for the traveler at night to realize there is still a place with light. You do not know how many people you have influenced simply by not running from the truth anymore. The conversations you thought were trivial, the moments of silence you assumed were meaningless, those became the invitations they had never heard. You only need to stand in the place I put you. Everything else I will do. Do not underestimate the gentleness I have sown into you. It is something the world cannot produce. I want you to know that your very presence, once I have refined it from the need to control, becomes the strongest testimony. People will come to you not because you are right, but because you no longer need to be right. They will speak with you not because you are persuasive, but because you no longer need to prove anything. And when they ask why you are peaceful, why you are unafraid, why you do not hurry, you only need to remind them that peace does not come from avoiding conflict, it comes from being in me. Then you are no longer merely a messenger. You become a bridge, not a tall, magnificent bridge, but a simple path between earth and heaven. You do not need to build fences to protect me. I am the one who protects you. You only need to open the door, keep your heart soft, and let me pass through you like a stream of unending water. In the end, when you live like this, you become a sign not because you tried, but because you stop trying. The weary will look at you and whisper in themselves, I wish I could be that peaceful, and I will speak in their hearts. You can come to me. You become a landmark for them to know that walking with me does not require winning greatly, understanding deeply, or overturning the world. Some walk only to keep their breath, some walk simply to keep from sinking, some walk to know that someone is with them. I want you to become that reminder in a world in panic. When the storm rises, they do not run to the thunder, they run to the place where the small lamp is still lit. My child, when you no longer seek artificial safety and choose true peace in me, you become that lamp, not the light that makes others gasp, but the light that makes them want to stay. My child, when you hear me through to the end of this journey, do not think it is the finish line. The spiritual journey is not like a book with a final page. It is like dawn, when the sky is pale, but the light has already appeared. You do not need to wait until everything is clear before you step. You only need to let me lead you one step more. I do not place you in the circle of endless questions to exhaust you. I place questions to open your heart toward what I want to sow. A farmer does not demand the seed to understand why the rains must come before sowing. He simply sows because he knows the season will arrive. I do not demand you explain every sign, every change, every emotion moving within. I only want you to bring them before me. When you do this, You step out of the artificial space of carrying everything alone and step into the space of companionship where you no longer need to pretend to be strong. You have walked through teachings about compromise, hesitation, true strength, and the quiet kind of courage. Now I want you to know one final thing. I do not stop at correction. I did not call you here merely to point out what is lacking. I called you to restore you. You do not need to feel ashamed for the times you stepped back, for the small decisions that pulled you away from truth, for the seasons in which you chose the safety zone instead of the path I opened. Regret is not where I let you dwell. Regret is simply the doorway that brings you back to me. You may look at your past as footprints that went the wrong direction, but I look at your past as the ground where I waited for you. There is no action of yours that causes me to withdraw my hand. All you need to say is, I am here, and the moment you return, I stand beside you. A stumble does not make you weaker in my eyes. It only reveals the parts of your heart you have not yet allowed me to touch. And when that truth becomes clear, peace begins to take root. I know there are days when your spirit feels like a fragile sprout swaying against every kind of wind. Some people will look at you and say, that flame is too small, that faith is too thin, that will is not enough. But the nature of strength does not lie in size, it lies in origin. A young shoot may appear delicate, yet its true roots are stronger than the dry branch that strains itself to resist the wind. You do not need to pretend to be unshakable, you only need to keep your roots in me. I have seen many souls collapse not because the storm was too strong, but because they never allowed me to reach the root. You may stand before 1,000 judging eyes and remain steady if you know that I dwell within you. Do not let the world define your journey by what they can see. They see only the bud. I see the season of flowers behind it. You do not walk to prove, you walk to live. You will ask, when am I strong enough? When do I believe enough? When will I know I am ready? And I will answer gently, no one has ever been ready, only obedient. Many people wait for their hearts to stop trembling before they step forward, but that moment never arrives. The trembling beat is the space where I place my hand upon your chest and say, walk with me. I do not calm the wind so you can begin. I walk with you through the wind. I do not silence the questions in your heart. I lead you to the place where the questions no longer rule you. When you step, do not try to extinguish fear. Place your fear in my hands. I do not see your trembling as failure. I see it as a prayer unspoken. And within every fear, I see the hunger of your soul to live according to what I have placed within you. That hunger is worth more than every counterfeit form of confidence. There will be people who hold you back with comfortable words. Just wait a little longer. Don't upset anyone. Don't do anything too different. They are not malicious. They simply have not seen what I am doing in your soul. You do not need to blame them. I do not call you to fight them. I call you to walk after me. When I open a door, you do not need to bring the crowd to prove your step. You only need to walk through and let my light speak in your place. Others may think you are delusional, impulsive, or careless, but they cannot hear the voice I have placed within you. They cannot see the signs I have sown along your path. They cannot perceive my preparation in the seasons you thought were silent. You do not need to persuade them. You only need to remain faithful. The season of recognition is never the season of beginnings. Beginnings always pass through silence. Therefore, when you close these pages, remember, not every door requires an explanation. Some doors simply require a step. I did not create you to stand as someone who watches opportunities pass by and says, maybe this is all my life will be. I created you so that the memory of your hesitations would not be a conclusion. They are reminders not to remain asleep. You do not need to know the next 10 steps. You only need to know the one step I place before you. If that step is small, do not despise it. I have used the smallest seeds to create forests. I have used whispers to awaken souls that believed themselves already dead. And I will use you as I have used those before you, not through what they thought they possessed, but through what I placed in them from the beginning. True peace is not found in avoiding the waves, but in knowing that even when the storm roars, I am with you. Walk just one step, and you will know the rest. Now pray like this. Lord, give me enough courage to step away from the false safe places I built to protect myself. There were times I chose silence not because of peace, but because I feared facing the truth you placed in my heart. I smiled while my spirit trembled. I said, "I'm fine," when my heart knew I was ignoring your call. Teach me to distinguish the peace of the spirit from the silence of fear, so I may know that your voice does not paralyze me, but matures me. Lord, forgive me for the times I mistook avoiding conflict for wisdom. I chose the easy road. I compromised just to keep harmony, yet deep inside I knew I was drifting away from you. Help me speak what needs to be spoken in humility, not to win, not to prove, but to protect the truth you entrusted to me. Do not let me become one who does the right thing halfway simply to be liked. Lord, heal my habit of self-protection through silence. I have grown accustomed to shrinking back, hiding what you stir in me simply because I fear being misunderstood. But I know this: your voice does not vanish when I stay quiet. It is my heart that becomes shut. Open the door within my soul, that I may hear you, not with the ears of the flesh, but with the sensitivity of my spirit. Lord, teach me to recognize you not only in great signs, but in the smallest promptings. Sometimes your word sounds like a faint whisper amid a noisy street, yet that whisper is the reminder that I am drifting. Help me remember what you have said. My sheep hear my voice. Let me hear that call as a child returning home, not as someone forced to guess every step. Lord, free me from the thought that safety is the goal. I once believed that avoiding risk was protecting myself, that choosing what caused less friction was living faithfully. But compromise shrinks me piece by piece, convincing my soul that normalizing fear is comfort. Teach me that peace is not born from avoidance, but from trusting that you cover me in your light. Lord, save me from the subtle strategy of hesitation. It does not destroy my dreams in a single day, but gently settles on me like dust each morning, persuading me that tomorrow will be better. Awaken my spirit to the opportunities that are closing because I have been slow to move. Teach me to value time, for every moment is a seed you have entrusted to me, not a ticket that allows me to delay obedience. Lord, free me from the need to be validated by the world before I take a step. I have waited for applause, for approval, for agreement, as if my worth were defined by the eyes of others. But I know this: I am not the echo of someone's acceptance. I am the answer to a calling. Strengthen my heart so I may walk after you even when no one outside understands what I am doing. Lord, teach me to see hesitation through your light. I believed I needed more time, more assurance, more counsel, but sometimes hesitation itself is the trap that keeps me standing on the sidelines forever. Change the inertia within me. Instead of asking, "Am I enough?" help me to learn to ask, "Do you want me to step forward?" Lead me from fear of being wrong into trust in you. Lord, forgive me for the times I traded your calling for temporary comfort. I said, "I just want things to be normal." Yet that very normalcy obscured the life you were planting in me. Do not let me define my existence by what is easy to endure. Remind me that you did not create me merely to survive each day, but to grow step by step in your light. Lord, teach me to heed your gentle warnings before they become a storm. Help me notice when my heart begins to dry out, when weariness begins to replace passion, when mere endurance begins to replace obedience. Guard me from confusing exhaustion with your direction, so I do not shut the gates of heaven by assuming I need rest, when what I truly lack is you. Lord, restore the boldness of my soul. Do not let me become someone who only dares to move when everything is easy, who only dares to speak when no one disagrees, who only dares to love when no one rejects. I do not want to live in the contraction of the heart. I want to live by faith, anchored in you. Make me a person who chooses truth, not someone who chooses comfort. Lord, place your hand upon my back. When I stand before the doors you open, do not let me wait for one more explanation, one more encouragement, one more piece of evidence before I dare to step. I know the world does not need to understand me for me to obey. I only need to know that you are ahead of me. Lead me, step by step, breath by breath, season by season, so that I may not live as one who avoids, but as one who trusts that my Father will never abandon me. I offer this prayer in the holy name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Do not forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so that together we may build a strong community of faith.